Welcome to the Slava Heroyam podcast, the podcast where we talk about the individual heroes on the Ukraine side of the Russia-Ukraine conflict and try to tell those stories and combat the propaganda of Putin. With me today again is friend of the podcast, Ben Cook, one of the co-founders of the Ukrainian Assistance Organization. So we'll talk about that today as our organization of the week. We'll also do our hero of the week is Roman Hribov. And we have a little bit of some troubling news to talk about as well. Our main topic for today will be the rise and fall of the Russian Empire as the United States thought of them as an enemy, or by examining the history of espionage novels and espionage movies. And then we'll watch one espionage movie in particular that has pretty significant history to the heart of the Cold War. So anyway, with that, how are you doing today, Ben? Glad to have you here back.
Well, thanks for having me back. I'm doing quite well. Thank you.
So our hero of the week is someone not many people know by name, but everyone has heard his catchphrase before. At the very beginning of the war, on February 24th, 2022, Snake Island came under assault by two Russian warships. One of them being the Moskva, the other being its sister ship, which was a more stealthy and more modern patrol vessel. And this fellow right here, if you are on YouTube or Facebook, is Roman Hribov, who famously told the Russian warship to go F yourself. And the interesting thing about him, about that particular phrase, is he tells his son that, yes, I said that, but you are to never repeat that. So what do you remember about the Snake Island saga, Ben?
I remember a story coming out. I thought it was, going to be Ukrainian propaganda, which happens during the war, and I'm totally fine with everybody propagandizes their side. But then the proof of it came out, and I was like, wow, he said exactly that. Well, in Ukrainian.
Yes.
And I was very impressed. That's pretty steadfast and cold-hearted because, where was he going to go? He's on an island, so he stood right, face the danger and spat in its face.
And I think it was such a harsh and defiant response that it came out pretty soon after that there were 13 defenders and all of them had been killed. And as many of us know who followed that news, and a lot of people who only followed the news during that time period, that turned out to not be true. But it was not true for a lot of confusing reasons, both for Ukraine and for Russia. So the interesting thing about it is he said that phrase, and it is still classified what the situation was and what happened immediately after.
Now, I think they thought he was dead, right, for the longest time.
Yes, they thought the news reported that there was 13, both Ukrainian news, Russian news, and Western news all reported 13 defenders dead. And then Russia revised it first and said, no, we have 80 prisoners here. There were 80 prisoners on the island. Turns out there were 82 prisoners. Then the Western news media caught up and confirmed that, and so did Ukraine. What happened to Roman there and the other 80 prisoners, the original 80? There was an original 80 and then 2 were added. 80 of them were gathered onto the front of the middle of the island and made lay prone for 5 hours while they withstood interrogation in the cold. They weren't stripped nude or anything yet at that point, which they later would be. And all of them would face different kinds of torture where they were beaten. Roman endured beatings, but some of his comrades endured electric shock, needles under the fingernails, and if you saw one of the Daniel Craig James Bond movies, the rope torture against the genitals type thing. So all that kind of stuff happened, and what they were looking for as part of their interrogation was who said that. So that there's even confusion over whether Roman is the actual true utterer of the phrase, because the Ukrainians' official word was the guy who really said that could have been still in captivity. Well, it turns out this summer that the last of the 80 captives was returned in a prisoner exchange. there were something like 25 that were returned within the first month, and Roman was one of them. Mm-hmm. And he was immediately given credit when he was returned, but it turns out he is the one that said the phrase. But he was given an award for bravery, not the nation's highest award, but from the governor of the oblast that he's from. I forget where that is. But where I want to get to with that, he survived all that, and I compared the situation of heroism to the 6 Americans who raised the flag on Iwo Jima, because he's returned home and he's become the war bonds guy. So he goes around just like those gentlemen, the Marines. Ira Hayes is the one I always remember because he's Native American and has a very long and tragic story. But he's kind of the Ira Hayes of Ukraine. Earlier this spring, they were having a big football game, meaning soccer, and he did their equivalent of throwing out the first pitch of that, but came out with the stamp. And some people may have seen the stamp. I should have had that. You don't? Do you guys use that stamp or anything like that as things to sell for the Ukrainian Assistance Organization?
We thought about it in the beginning, and I own somewhere, I can't remember where, but I bought a ration of those stamps and a couple other doodads and hoo-has in the very beginning in the fervor. I couldn't figure out how to get my money over there fast enough in the beginning.
So the artist is now given Roman credit for being his likeness on the stamp, but it's a really compelling story, and he and the other prisoner exchanges is just it's not something we do really in the U.S., but it's a cultural thing. I don't know if you know much more about why it goes back in Slavic culture to have prisoner exchanges to return prisoners like this.
I'm not aware of anything.
Okay, it's just very interesting, something I would like to learn. So that is our hero of the week, and a little bit of history on him. Eventually, the Moskva does get sunk it's April of that year. So Roman returns in time to see the ship that he insulted sunk. So, which is, a full circle thing. And as you know, the warfare has progressed since then a little bit to drone naval warfare and that kind of thing. So
that's right. They hit oil infrastructure in the Black Sea this past week, which is nice to see.
And there was some good video of that.
Anything that lets me stretch my muscles, patting myself on the back, I like to see. Because I've been calling for that for months and months and months, that has happened to make any realistic move towards ending the war by bleeding Russia dry financially and have them collapse from within. You have to turn off those taps as best you can. You can't turn them off all the way, but you don't have to turn them off all the way. That's one of the big misnomers. Like, there is no way Ukraine could ever completely destroy Russia's infrastructure. They can build it back too fast, this, that, and the other. And they're right. There's no way. But you don't have to have it completely destroyed. You just need to have it about 10 times worse than it is now. And then the people of Russia will, who can't get heating oil, who can't go to work to earn those nice wages, working at those military factories, they'll do it for you.
Yeah, that is true. And something that struck me about one of the videos of watching that attack, and I kind of wish I was going to focus on a different video, but is that a Russian populace is it Sevastopol?
I've heard it's Sevastopol. It just depends on where you put the emphasis on the syllable.
Yes. I guess so. That would be Ukrainian populace, not Russian in that case. But air raid sirens were going off. Everybody was still kind of walking around on Main Street, not taking cover, because they're not afraid that they're gonna get hit by a drone aimed at their house. And these drones, you can see them clearly come in through the bay, and they go behind a building, and then the refinery blows up. And some people kind of scoot away from the refinery and say, "Oh my God, what was that?" But no, everyone knows they're not in danger, unlike some certain other Ukrainian cities. So there's a stark contrast there. And
Russia is known for shooting into the water, having the bullets bounce off the water into the city.
Oh dear.
Yeah, so they do that all the time. You have to have a pretty steep attack angle to keep your bullets from ricocheting off the water. Anything shallow, it's just going to come right back off. Well, I mean, you can see it with tracer fire. You'll see it if you've seen the videos, especially in the beginning when Ukraine was hitting all the ships in the Black Sea. There were lots of desperate attempts to shoot these things, and you could just see the rounds careening off the water into the city.
It sounded desperate. And yeah, I still don't feel like they have a good answer for them. It feels like big news on the Russian blogger sites when they actually do get one, because they're like, yeah. But and there was all kinds of interesting other victories, like being able to shoot down aircraft with them and this sort of thing.
Helicopters, now jet airplanes, yeah, and now they're launching other drones. They're motherships that launch aerial drones, and they probably, when that happens, they probably work as a transmission hub of some sort as well, because you could put a lot of battery and a lot of mass, and a lot of electricity and a lot of antenna on something that floats on the water. So it would probably work really good short term. It's probably a one-way trip, because you're also telling everybody, come look at me, look at me, look at me. Something's going on out here. But in the meantime, those drones are off doing their business.
And a lot of your writings are on how far behind or how much the rest of the West needs to catch up to this type of drone warfare. Even as at Raytheon, I see all kinds of my opinions are my own, but I'm not representing the company here. But what I do see us being able to make is a lot of counter drone technology that we're working on. So it makes me excited, but also wishing it was already caught up and deployed. But one thing that I don't see us making is naval warfare drones a lot. So
there are companies making it. I don't know of any in particular in the U.S. I'm sure that there are some. I've seen plenty of companies in other countries where that may be their strong suit, something that they're better suited to do. The naval side has its own challenges, obviously, but it can certainly be done. But the problem is scale, magazine depth. How fast can Raytheon put together additional production lines if needed, and how close can they get that to the front? How short is that feedback loop going to be from the person who's actually using it to the engineer that can upgrade it? Those are the lessons we've actually learned from Ukraine. It's not that they can put together an interceptor drone to take down a Shahed. It's that they can go from 10 to 10,000 in a month, and then 100,000, and then 500,000, then a million, very, very quickly. Given the right incentives, I'm sure Raytheon can do that as well, but can they do it close to the front? Can they do it in a centralized manufacturing?
Right.
That's the big question. And when the U.S. has to get itself into a near peer conflict, those things can't come from Tucson, Arizona. It's not going to be the way it works.
No, yeah, I understand. And we may have you back to talk more, or we probably will have you back to talk more about that another time. But one thing that drones also do in this particular conflict is remove the plausible deniability aspect of war crimes. And we have a war crime that happened in memoriam. This is on the page of the Kyiv Independent. All right. So what I'm about to show is they've cut all the graphic details out of, but unfortunate, what happened is that in this area of conflict, a Russian squad, and the strange thing is there was even a propaganda video on the Russian side, by Ukraine at one point that Russians would behave this way, but now we've caught them on drone footage actually doing it, where a squad goes in, not only kidnaps the kid and takes her hostage. You hear all the time about needing to return the children from Ukraine. Well, I want people to realize that this kid is being kidnapped and watching her parents be killed in front of her. And then she's taken to the front as a human shield to help fight against the Ukrainians. I am not sure how this situation ends. I need to read more about it. I think the Russian squad eventually retreats, but they even know the call sign of the Russian commander that ordered this attack on this family preemptively. So we're going to watch that. I'm going to, because they always put different music. So you have this is the Russian squad. Are you seeing it now, Ben?
Yeah, I can see it.
I wonder if I can go full screen. Doesn't look like it can. So now they've left the house. It's burning. And they've got this kid. She's a teenager, I think, or a little bit old, or maybe preteen. And there she is in the black. Well, it's over now. Or they are doing something in Ukrainian.
Yeah, I've seen this translated version, and it's terrible.
Yeah. So the Ukrainians are trying
to hide the bodies, and all. The commanders telling them do all these horrific things and hide the bodies and this, that, and the other, and it's ridiculous.
There goes a dog. So maybe I'll re-edit it with there's the parents. Yeah,
So
bodies.
that's them hiding the bodies.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and they don't know they're being watched, and their comms are being recorded too. Anyways, it is to show that atrocity happened, but I want to, a moment of silence for them or for that kid, and I hope she's returned. So we'll do that for just a moment. All right, and so we'll go to organization of the week. I'm gonna switch to y'all's webpage real quick, and then I'm gonna put this banner up here.
That is us.
Yeah, and then I have to share. There we go. Okay, so here the Give UAO website. Do you guys have your current campaign on here at all?
Website, and it's great because you have to have something like this for a donation page. Mm-hmm. But honestly, 90% of our traffic is through Instagram. But this is fine because this is where you would go to donate. I'm glad you brought this up. If you'll hit the donate button there, just click that, and then move your mouse away from it. It's got a pop-up. It's supposed to pop up once, and that's it. And apparently, with some operating systems, it's popping up over and over and over again. It could be people's ad blockers. It could be pop-up blockers. I don't know, but I'm just going to get them to take it off completely.
Oh, okay.
I've got to contact the webmaster and tell them you can X out of it as well. But yeah, I got rid of that. But you can do sections down here. On the right, you have recurring donations, and on the left, you have a one-time donation. So both are done in increments. The recurring donation, the lowest one is $50, but the one donation, it's in $5 increments. So we get, lots of $5 donations, and I love those because it's easy in my head to know that that's somebody's medicine for a month. $5 in Ukraine. Wow. It's going to drive people in the United States crazy that you can get medicine for $5 a month. And I mean probably all of meds for $5 as well. So it's really going to drive you crazy that people can get all of their meds for $5, but in certain countries you can. And I'm talking about the same medicine you and I have. But anyway, that's a different topic. But yes, for $5, we can get. Now, obviously, if someone needs chemotherapy or insulin or something like that, that's going to be a little more expensive.
Now, in Kherson, everybody has to be worried about a drone attacking them every day. In other cities, to be worried about air raid sirens. But there's people that are hearing impaired that cannot get those warnings very well. So you have a special program going on to help them.
That's right. We're delivering smartwatches, so they get the notification on their wrist for the one we've got. One of our partners, Nonviolent Peace Force, is the name of their organization, and they've helped us by donating some smartwatches. Now these are not Samsung Galaxy watches. Right. These are more like a style, that still have capabilities you would need.
A little bit more technologically advanced than the I've fallen but I can't get up emergency system, but
exactly.
But yeah, nothing so expensive that Apple's going to make a lot of money off of them or anything.
Yeah, exactly.
But it could save someone's life.
Our co-founder Mike Scalarion, he said, I'm looking at his Instagram right now. He said they distributed 250 smartwatches. Okay, so this is Lisa right here. Mm-hmm. She's the head honcho. Me and Mike are just pretty faces. She does all the work along with Anastasia. I think she's next on down. Okay. Yeah, there's Anastasia. And Anastasia and Lisa really are the ones who run the charity. They are the charity.
Oh, well.
Really? And this is Lemon there, or Lemon. That's Lisa's dog, and Bug is Mike's dog.
Oh, Bug's Mike's dog.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, well, they are, I'm sure, fierce as well.
So. Fierce.
Yeah. Excellent. So this 30-day campaign, what's special about it?
My birthday is in 30 days. Well, it was, 30 days when I kicked off the campaign, and I thought, just to play around with 30 days of helping, the charity, giving updates on the website, on my Substack and my Instagram. I'll ask Tom Cooper, who I write for, has been kind enough to, allow me to post 3 or 4 times and raise money for the charity, and his viewership is very generous. So in the first 2 days, we've raised about $1,000. My goal is $3,000. So in the first 2 days, we've got $1,000 plus or minus. And now the way this works is if you've ever raised money, that goes cold. So I'll get a couple more donations tomorrow, maybe $5, $10, $20, maybe $50 if I'm lucky. And then I'll have to go to the well again. And so by the time the end of the 30 days rolls around, you hope you get somewhere around 3,000. But if you don't get half in the first 48 hours, you're not going to get there. So we'll get close. Yeah. It's $1,000. That's a lot of medicine.
Yep, the price of a less than the price of a coffee now, almost. So at least at Starbucks. So
That's right. So
yeah,
the other mandate we have is inclusion. We don't particularly love that term, but that's the term that our donors use or give to us to use. We chose to work with in making sure that disabled people are included, and we had some inroads and some connections in the hearing impaired community. And so we thought to ourselves, let's, that's the fruit. Let's get in there and see what we can do with that. And it's just been fantastic. That has really, we had those connections already there. It really flattened out the learning curve, and we've been able to hit the ground running with that.
well, that's excellent. Go back to it's just a simple donation button. A pop-up will come up. $5 is medicine for a month. You guys have reach in all Ukrainian cities, but you're also trying to drive into the front sometimes where it's difficult to get medicine to people. So I want people to understand that too. It's not just taking care of people that can't afford their medicine or the medicine isn't available in the conflict zone. Sometimes difficult to get to, but organizations like Give UAO take the risk and get to them because those folks need it.
That's right. And it's getting, the closer you are to the front, the more dangerous it is. They've blocked us pretty much out of Kherson just because it's too dangerous. The Russians are targeting civilians, and there's no guarantees, but if we don't have some reasonable guarantee, we can't go. They've taken it out of our hands completely anyway because they just don't want to. They won't let us in.
And there are ways to solve that problem that require a little bit more firepower than you guys have. But we will talk about how we need to kind of return Russia to the public zeitgeist as an enemy and an adversary. And that is our main topic today. I want to start kind of in the 50s and 60s a little bit, when everyone is you have the McCarthy era, of course, which is the other extreme, where you don't want to make everyone that afraid of Russians, because then you start affecting people who are scrupulous. But from it, then you had, out of that storytelling came books like and things of that nature that warned of that kind of politics. But then you had an era that everybody remembers, the early James Bond films, where Russia was the adversary. Dr. Strangelove. Do you have a favorite espionage movie from the 50s and 60s era?
No, my favorite Go Kill the Commies movie is Red Dawn.
Oh, okay.
With Swayze.
That is 80s era.
Yeah. That was my era. I was 72. So,
right.
From before that, oh gosh, I don't know. There were good ones. And sometimes I mixed up. Sometimes I think, I'm watching, sneak around espionage against the Russians, but then I was like, oh no, this is a period piece for World War II. Calm down, because both are very popular at the same time.
A lot of the movies that people are familiar with from the mid 2000s and so forth were of this original Cold War era. The Man from U.N.C.L.E., Get Smart, Mission Impossible, the Avengers, not those of the other Avengers.
Red Dawn. Remember we did Red Dawn, but they made the Chinese the bad guys.
Yes. And yeah, that is kind of what we're getting at, is eventually you get up to an era of Red Dawn where the Russians are no longer the adversary. In the publishing and writing world, from the 50s, 60s, and 70s even, is the Cold War era. And then you hit the early 80s. It all starts, Clancy's where it really took off, but it all starts with a book called Firefox, and the Firefox is written by Craig Thomas, a British author. And his inspiration for this book was actually the defection of Lieutenant Viktor Belenko. Viktor Belenko was a Soviet pilot. He basically arranged with United States authorities that he was going to take off on his patrol route and act like he had an emergency. And it was a successful defection. And a big deal because it was around the time of the U-2 shoot down, a bunch of stuff going on like that. And that was a MiG-25. But at some point, Craig Thomas finds out that the Soviet Union was upgrading the MiG-25 to something called a MiG-31. And the 25 was called the Fox Bat, and the MiG-31 is called the Fox Hound. Now, the MiG-31, for those of you keeping track of the Ukraine conflict, is the culprit of the aircraft that reached Estonia. So you had 3 MiG-31s, and in the Air Force, we used to call those guys high fast flyers because the MiG-31 could fly at Mach 6. They would come at somewhere, 40 to above 50,000 feet. They could shoot you from that altitude, and they were a threat to AWACS if you did not intercept them correctly. Mm-hmm. Now, the Foxhound, Foxhound is the 31. I get it's Fox, and then we'll get into a movie called Firefox, where they had a fictional. The movie is a fictionalized aircraft, but in the book it is the real MiG-31 they're trying to steal.
It's a little bit Hunt for Red October in the Air, which this came out first before Clancy. So it actually would be Hunt for Red October is Firefox underwater.
That's what I'm saying is Firefox is considered often to be the first techno thriller, and established a lot of tropes for the spy genre. Mm-hmm. What else? Continue about the movie. I cut you off a little bit there.
No, I was just the thing that I like about it is it hits all the buttons. You see Clint Eastwood mingling in Russia, doing spycraft. And then you have the techno thriller part, the plane that can go silent and fly so fast. And, you fire weapons just by thinking, but you have to think in Russian to get it to work. And then someone who has tried and failed so many times to learn Russian, it's always nice to hear somebody else struggle to speak Russian like Clint Eastwood does.
So I'm gonna be laughing at that pretty soon.
Yeah, he does okay. Not it's passable for 80s for sure. You could hang a lantern on a lot in the 80s, and get away with it.
Now, the one more thing about the Foxhound is that they fitted those to carry the hypersonic cruise missiles. So you've got a jet that can go Mach 6 that can launch a missile that can go Mach whatever. Yeah. And that is like, those of you that are physics experts, you get something that goes really high, really fast, launches something that goes really fast, and it can go really far. And so now you've got what, people are worried about Estonia and the Baltic places, but the reason that you should really consider shooting them down or being more threatening towards them is because if those things get far into Estonia or wherever they want to get, even over the Baltic Sea, you can hit anywhere in Europe.
That's right. It'll take longer. It'll take longer to see it on radar, react to seeing it on radar, and making a call from seeing it on radar than for it actually to get to its target.
Yep. That is a good point. Again, I always like to remind everyone in these episodes that Russia is at war with you, even if you do not think they are at war with you.
You don't have to accept it for them to be at war with you.
Yes.
They didn't ask your permission. They don't think much of your children, just like they don't think much of Ukrainian children.
Exactly. And unfortunately, there was a time period where the Berlin Wall fell, and that Russia had a chance to be a democracy and to be the good guys. And I remember, even in the early 2000s, they would send their Bear bombers towards Alaska on their normal patrols, and we'd have guys intercept them, and we'd be a part of that process. The pilots of those bombers and our fighter pilots would kind of, moon each other and kind of do silly things, and there was all no big deal. Nobody worried about an international incident for a time. And then you hit in that era of the early 2000s and 90s after the Berlin Wall fell, you still had a few espionage things that tried to keep the old Cold War flavor going, but it just wasn't the same. And where you ended up was in the modern era with one of the most recognizable spy thrillers of the modern era was the Bourne Identity series, Jason Bourne series, where now you're worried about secret shadow organizations not affiliated with any country, but that try to control world politics still. And that is where the modern era goes for a while. And or you make China the adversary, or you do what Top Gun Maverick did and just have a very obviously this is probably Iran, but with Russia plays. But we're not going to name the target.
Which is kind of like, I don't know if you saw. I watched the new Superman recently, and they they made up the stands as the bad guy.
They did.
Yeah,
they did. And that was, a lot of people immediately thought of Gaza in that movie. I do a lot of Superman stuff.
Oh yeah.
On my writing ref channel, which we will get to in a minute. But that particular story, and this is a place to talk about that. A lot of people associated Gaza immediately with that, and that's because the country that's being picked on is pretty much defenseless, and Ukraine is not defenseless at all. And but the aggressor nation has a very Slavic Russian style language.
Yeah.
It's a fake language,
Yeah.
but
I mean, they're saying "da" for yes. You know. That's
yeah.
yeah.
So you noticed that. So I'm sure others noticed it. And the aggressor nation president has some sycophants following him around and that kind of thing. So I'm not sure Netanyahu has that, but Putin does. So
yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So yeah, that is a good. It trickles into not just espionage, but all of our other genres as well. And
wasn't Superman one of his first jobs in the comic books was to beat the commies?
To beat the Nazis, really.
The Nazis. Okay, it was before. It was okay, and then they like now you got to beat the Russians.
Yeah. And there was an interesting comic where Superman ended up in Russia instead. It's called Red Sun, and I don't remember how that whole story goes, but Superman is raised in communist Russia, and he still ends up he's still a moral person even through all that, even though he has a different political ideology. It's still but it comes out in the end, in other words, that hey, the Soviet Union is not correct. But
well, I mean, back then that would have caused quite the kerfuffle to have a communist Superman. These days it would cause a kerfuffle, but there'd be enough people saying, yeah, that's just art, that's just art. You let the writers do what the writers do. If they want to make Superman a communist, Superman can be a communist.
Right. So I don't know at what point Russia was supposed to re-enter the adversary in storytelling, but better late than never is my thought here. But I know that there's something that had happened in tandem, and this is happening all over the world. For the United States, there are two events. Well, I guess one of these affected Britain also. That harmed the trust in all the three-letter agencies. So not only is Russia not the adversary, but having your hero be from one of the three-letter agencies started to become unpopular as well. And that was because of, in 2013, Snowden, and then there was the WikiLeaks that came after that.
Yeah. Well, I'm torn on that. I wish Snowden had a better lawyer and a more of a man, and it's easy for me to say, but took some lumps because I think he could have pled his way into, 5 years on a farm somewhere and then worked the circuit,
right.
Because there were plenty of politicians like Ted Cruz, who I'm not a fan of, but just to say there's plenty on the left and a few on the right that called him a hero, because he exposed the excesses of our quote unquote deep state. And if he had handled it differently, that would have been the story that we tell, but he didn't handle it differently.
Right. And the three-letter agencies in general do not consider him a hero, but it's not a political argument for me. What I want people to understand is that maybe you were talking about, maybe this goes into what the court case you were talking about, or having a good court argument about it, because where the people were involved in understanding everything, but you couldn't understand everything from the three-letter agency side. They couldn't just go, okay, here's all of the stuff Snowden showed you that we're doing, but we're not actually doing that because we're doing these other things. Well, those other things that they could refute what he was showing with are classified, and they can't just unclassify it to show people we're not using it against the American people in the way that it's coming across. And
then we had another horrible episode with the Trump fiasco with Russiagate. Doesn't matter whether Trump did this or Trump did that. That's not the point I'm making. The point I'm making is how the FISA court abused its power. You can't have circular proof. You can't leak something to Yahoo News and then use that as your proof that it exists in the canon. And this is all the proof I need in order to get a warrant. You can't have that. And so that further damaged, the three-letter agencies, because I think that was mostly the FBI. It could have been somebody else, but I think it was the FBI.
Yeah, and it is, and that whoever's in charge, and it's going to keep going that way. I mean, there's more stuff going on even right now with certain investigations going on that I don't want to get into that are weird. And if you take the pulse of the nation on it, everybody's like, none of this makes sense. But where I want to kind of backtrack to is when that also hurt the media a bit. But the media, some people I think were after egos, because when you get bruised egos and you feel like you're under attack, you want to attack back, and then you subvert the system to attack back, and you've lost sight of the ideology behind anything at that point. So
all of these agencies have a problem. And they get the same people from the same places doing the same thing day in and day out.
Mm-hmm.
Let me just talk mostly about the FBI. Majority of agents come from Ivy League and upper echelon universities.
Mm-hmm.
They're all cookie cutter, gingerbread. One's the same as the other. They do that on purpose. That's not an accident. And the people who are successful because they're political.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not how you have a successful agency. If we were smart about the FBI, it would be based somewhere as far away from Washington as we could get them.
Right. And that's
physically based as far away from there as possible, and make it to where, there's sort of a term limit kind of thing for the upper echelon of people. When I hear people say, "Oh, he worked for the FBI for 25 years," I'm like, well, then he needs a real job. He needs to go do something else. Because if you tell me that he worked for the FBI for 10 years, then worked and did something else, and then came back and worked for the FBI for another 15 years, that to me sounds impressive. Mm-hmm. Not that I had the same job for the government for 25 years. To me, that is the least impressive thing. That disqualifies you for leadership, not qualifies you for leadership.
The FBI's issues go all the way back to Jimmy Hoffa and everything. The CIA's issues are a little bit different in that they performed operations that went against the ideology of trying to create free nations. Instead, they just created some situations, especially in the 70s and early 80s. And I didn't want to get into all this too much, but it
fits. It fits because they did it to fight communism.
Yeah.
That was the excuse anyway. A lot of it, it turns out it might just be good old money, but they did it to quote unquote fite communism.
But it is important.
If you look at communism's track record, that's a pretty good reason to do something, is to fight communism. They other than religion, they got the best body count. Nothing beats communism.
Yep, this is true. And from that era came a lot of oversight that people aren't familiar with. Mm-hmm. And that's what I'll end on the distrust with, is that I think the visibility of the oversight, which physically moving the FBI away sounds like a good idea to me. I haven't thought of that before, but anyway, you can show the people that there's oversight on the agencies. You need to get back to a place where people know they're not supposed to know everything, and they're okay with that. So otherwise, if they're at a point where they don't trust you and that they want so much, when people talk about transparency, what they really mean is I want to know everything, and that lets you be manipulated, because they can say, "Oh, I am showing you everything." Well, are you? Where's the Epstein files anyway?
Yeah.
So I get one of those in.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, it's it doesn't matter where you come down on a lot of these things. It's just like, where's the transparency? We can't. Somebody just needs to say, well, it's what you think it is. We can't be transparent on this. It's exactly what you think it is. We aren't going to be able to be transparent on this because there's currently right now some too big to fail situations going on, and maybe later we can get into it and open everything up and talk about it. But right now, it doesn't do the country any good to do this. They might be wrong, but that's probably not their call to decide whether it does the country any good. But that is something that you could do. It's like, it's horrible, and we're going to talk about it. We're just not going to talk about it right now. Instead of having Kesh Patel, do a complete 360 or 180 on Joe Rogan, which destroyed his credibility, with the right.
Absolutely. So I don't know how you get back to telling a Russia is the bad guy story, because I'm having trouble with that as a writer. But if someone figures out the formula to do it, they will start a whole new era of espionage. And with that, let's take a look at how things used to be, and maybe we'll have some ideas. If you're interested in seeing our reaction to Firefox with Clint Eastwood, go to www.travishightower.net or the Writing Ref on YouTube. Noticed from these is a lot of good interpretations of what the Soviet military hierarchy is like. I don't know about if the KGB stuff, how accurate that was, because we skipped over a lot of it. But I remember a movie called Gotcha, where these guys that would go around playing paintball games in their college got recruited to the CIA, and they had to go against real KGB agents were on their college trying to do stuff. So Russians were everywhere spying on our country and wandering around too. So you always felt like a Russian spy could be around any corner, even in the 80s, with the type with media that was put out. And that kind of stopped in favor of evil shadow organizations and things of that nature. It was interesting to think about Airwolf, because in that show, you had the guy that wouldn't even trust our own government with Airwolf. So things were already brewing back in the early 80s in that regard too. I like the fighter pilot stuff on this. I could comment on it a little bit. Russian scientists are interesting, kind of being defectors. Did they have any motivation for why they were helping the Americans?
Like the scientists were persecuted Jews.
Oh, okay. So that's what they were going with.
Yeah. They were already in prison and forced to work.
Okay.
Yeah, and the underground people, I don't know.
That was interesting. So, how much persecution of Jewish people went on in the Soviet Union? A lot, or I don't know that history very well.
Depends on the time. A lot, yes, for sure, but it depends on the time.
I know in Ukraine that there, in addition to kind of a genocide by the Nazis during World War II, there were also there was an attempt to sort of during the Soviet times, even when Ukraine was part of the Soviet Union, to punish the Ukrainian people, and it may have been Jewish hate related, but I'm not sure. But there was a big starvation that Stalin did against them on purpose. So they faced that in Ukraine from both directions.
The big Jewish holiday in Rosh Hashanah is just over or just started this week. I can't remember. But Uman, Ukraine is one of the pilgrimage places for that. So there's probably an extra 250,000 Jewish folk in middle Ukraine right now. If you draw a line from Kiev to Odessa, right in the middle is Uman.
All right, cool. Yeah, I didn't know that. So we have a movie with evil Russians. We're running all over Russia. Of course, they can't get a technology that's better than us, but it would have been.
If they do, we'll send a Hollywood actor to take it from them.
Yep. So Hunt for Red October is a little bit later, where you actually have a Russian that wants to defect. And the captain, is his name Ramus? Yeah, he is Lithuanian, actually.
Yeah.
So that shows a little bit of the fracturing of those nations from Russia itself,
yep.
Although it wasn't really prevalent. Everyone sort of thought of the Soviet Union and Russia as all the same thing, and I think it's taken us for a while still, and it still affects our culture, the way we think about things. Because that's how some of the propaganda filters in of, this is complicated, we're all one people. Well, Americans for a long time already thought of the Soviet Union as all one people, and they really weren't. So
no, and a lot of it was, the same way Israel was born in the Middle East, so was so much of the Russian republics in Europe. It was just divided up in a room on a map.
Right.
Really, just a handful of people had anything to do with it at all. Just one day you wake up, the Soviets have done nothing but pound you to death. If you're Poland, they've done nothing but pound you to death, and then all of a sudden, guess what? You're on this side of the map.
Right. Well, we'll start to sign off from the podcast now. Everybody,
I had a great time.
Yeah, it was a good time. Everyone, please do check out what you can and give what you can to give uao.org. Goes to a good cause. We'll continue the podcast every 7 o'clock on Thursday, edited versions on Friday, on YouTube or Spotify or Facebook, or wherever you get your podcast. And we'll see you next time. And glory to those who defend the Constitution of the United States and Slava Ukraini.
Heroyam Slava.
Heroyam Slava.